Welcome to the Moviegoers Society podcast, brought to you by Nerdtropolis. And I'm your host, Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis. And joining me once again for another week is Drew Munhausen, my co-host and the professional media and movie mastermind. It's Halloween weekend, Drew, isn't it? And are you stuck somewhere in the back? Where are you at this weekend?
I picked up a new job. I was told that this job listing was available. It's night shift. It's not ideal. And I took it, and lo and behold, all the animatronics in this restaurant they're alive. They've come to life. So it's not ideal, not an ideal scenario.
Well, the more the merrier. So they're more than welcome to join us. But before we kind of get into all the fun, some wild and sad and crazy news, Drew, that we lost Friends star Matthew Perry to the biggest surprise ever. Like Chandler Bing, everyone's, probably my favorite character from the Friends franchise, passed away suddenly, surprisingly, at a very young age of 54 in his home. I just wanted to bring that up. I just can't believe it still. Just saying those words that Matthew Perry has passed away at age 54 is just wild.
Friends is probably one of, if not the most iconic sitcom at this point. Like, it's just synonymous with sitcoms. There's so many that are trying to replicate what that show did, most of them unsuccessfully. And I guess this was bound to happen, right? That we were going to lose a member of the Friends family eventually. But, at the age of 54, it's just way too soon. And this is really sad. And I know that he was in the news, I think late last year, because he had his book, a memoir, come out and talked a lot about his issues with addiction and such. But this was shocking news. And I know that a lot of times with celebrity deaths, depending on who it is and what kind of attachment we have to them, it can be really difficult. And Friends is a show that I think that so many people have watched and rewatched again. And I think there's a lot of people that are really experiencing a lot of emotions with this, and that's okay. It's a tough loss.
Yeah, especially after the reunion they had. I think that was on HBO Max. I mean, that was I never knew we were gonna have that type of reunion, and it was a very heartfelt reunion, and they opened up quite a bit. But it's very surprisingly, obviously, where they're still figuring out what's going on. He died drowning in his jacuzzi for whatever reason. It could have been heart related and he just drowned, or it could have been a bunch of things. I'm not speculating, just what they're reporting, but it's still sad news. Friends was a great show. I loved him in Whole Nine Yards. Like, actually, that's actually an underrated film. I feel like that's something we could revisit, because actually a really good film, and that got a sequel, The Whole 10 Yards. I never thought that movie would have got a sequel, but other than Friends, I did enjoy him in film and just wherever he popped up. And there's a bunch of other movies he was in, especially in the 90s and early 2000s.
He had some other sitcoms that were successful. Like he did, varying degrees of success, I guess. Like Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip, I think, was critically liked, but it didn't last long ratings wise. But he did The Odd Couple for a couple years more recently. And then, like you said, the Friends reunion looks like it's actually his last TV credit. So, he's been around and on our screens for a long time.
Yeah, it's super sad, and I feel so bad for all his friends and family. So our thoughts and prayers go out to them. Definitely probably start rewatching Friends again just to kind of see it. It's been a while since I rewatched it, and I kind of want to, because I mean, it's been a while, and I know it's such a great show. So and there's a lot of great moments for sure. I'm just thinking about a lot of episodes that I really love, and it's went on for a long, long time. But
yeah, it's just, I feel like I have to have a little bit of time. I feel like watching the episodes now, it's like almost going to be this cloud hanging over it of sadness, but hopefully not. He's one of my, if not my favorite character in the show. I think he's for sure one of the funniest, if not the funniest.
Yeah, and has a great storyline in there, and he's a lot of fun on that for sure. But very sad news indeed. But we have to go ahead and talk about some other stuff, some lighter stuff. But yeah, in this podcast, we dive into the world of cinema, exploring everything from beloved classics and latest blockbusters. And this is episode 16, which I'm very proud of, that we are on episode 16. And do we call this Halloween weekend, Drew, I guess? Is this technically called Halloween weekend?
Yeah, I think so. Halloween's in 2 days. So yeah, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, and we're visiting Freddy Fazbear Pizza for Five Nights at Freddy's. You can see Drew's already there. He's already on night number probably 4. He probably has one more night over there at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But before we get in all of that, we want to make sure you can follow us and connect with us online. You can find me and myself and Nerdtropolis on every social media platform you can think of at Shantaj and at Nerdtropolis. And don't forget to visit nerdtropolis.com for your daily dose of movie news, reviews, interviews, and trailers. And Drew, when you're not contributing to Nerdtropolis, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social medias. Follow me over on Letterboxd. That's where I'm posting what I'm watching all the time. And weekly over at Fresh Out the Podcast.
Also, don't forget to catch up on past episodes of the Moviegoers Society. Remember, we're on episode 16, so you got 15 to follow up on. Any video you watch on there, please like, comment, subscribe for sure. We just rolled over 1,000 subscribers, which is super exciting, finally. And also, I have my podcast, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and on the Nerdtropolis YouTube channel, talking producers, actors, writers, and everybody else. I'm kind of backlogged, Drew. I'm going to brag a little bit. I'm backlogged on interviews. Just because I don't want to put them all up in 1 week, but I could I'm probably sitting on 6 right now. I even talked to Neil deGrasse Tyson. I spoke to. So
that's exciting.
Yeah, that was a very exciting one. A little different though. It's documentary based, and so a little scientific stuff there, but a lot of nerdy stuff there. But a lot of good stuff happening. But I think now it's time to see if we can survive Five Nights at Freddy's. And Drew, I know we kind of maybe on the same boat as here, but to be honest, let's talk about real quick the box office before we dive into it. The box office is mind blowing to me because this movie is also on Peacock.
Absolutely mind blowing. I knew it was like the estimates were pretty good. I think we even said on the show last
50,
week it was
high 50 or so.
50 and I remember looking and seeing this was, a $20 million budget is what's reported. And yeah, I saw the numbers and I was shocked. What is it? 78 million domestic is way more than I anticipated.
And 52 million for international. So now you're sitting at 130 million worldwide, which is amazing already. And that's just for strictly probably 3 days. Sometimes they do like a 4 or 5 day, you get to that amount. 3 days, 130 worldwide.
For a day and date release on Peacock, like you mentioned, which full transparency, that's how I watched it. I watched it at home on Peacock. I didn't go see it in a theater. So I did not contribute to that box office. Very, very impressive. I knew that this was a popular franchise, especially I think among people younger than us. Like I think I was a little too old when the craze of Five Nights at Freddy's the games happened, and I've actually downloaded the first one before and tried to play it, and it wasn't for me. I think from a concept, I like the idea of it a lot, but I have a tendency to underestimate things that maybe I don't hold a particular interest in, and this for sure counts among those. I never would have seen this doing nearly 80 million opening weekend.
Right, and very mixed reactions to it. Just like ourselves with the critics, we kind of panned it a little bit, not a fan of it, but the audience scores is high, which I even said in my own review. If you're a fan of the video game, I'm certain you're going to love it. And even Jason Blumhouse said that we made this for the fans. This is directly for the fans. We don't care if you're not a fan. This is not for you. He even said it. He's like, we didn't make it for the non-fans. This is strictly for the fans. But I would say this as I dive into my thoughts. Jason Blumhouse also said they pushed the limits to PG-13, and I did not see that. There was a lot of hype to him saying, we pushed the limits PG-13. We made sure we pushed it. And I didn't see anything about that at all. I've seen, like I've mentioned many times before, I've seen PG-13 movies that have scared me a lot. And I keep mentioning this movie. Boogeyman did scare me, and I felt like they pushed limits in that film this year, but this film did not at all. What do you think about the horror aspect of this film, Drew?
100% with you. I thought this movie was extremely tame. I've seen lots of PG-13 horror movies that I liked and that I found to be scary. I didn't find this one to be scary, and I definitely didn't think it was pushing the limits with gore. There's maybe one kill in the movie that's like kind of, but also not, at the same time.
And there's some Saw-esque stuff in here, but it's very baby-like. But I tell you, the way the movie started, I was like, that's a great start. This tone was sharp with the first scene. And then it wanted to fabricate the story and put us on this really long narrative before we even get into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. I keep wanting to say Five Nights at Freddy's, but the location actually has a real name. I will give this movie this type of praise. The characters that were built by Jim Henson's Creature Shop are a standout, like amazing. Obviously, that's where most of the love into this went, was the looks of the animatronics. I thought the design, the craftsmanship, everything was great. And it captured the eeriness of the game somewhat. And it really pushed the limits because obviously they're physical and it's not a digital character. But I thought they did a really great job with the looks of the iconic characters from the video game.
I'm 100% agree with you. I thought the actual creatures looked fantastic, and they're menacing and they're big and they're truly creepy. And I think when the movie plays with the actual concept of the game, of like seeing the animatronics on security cameras, looking away and then looking back at the camera and they're gone. The idea of the creature stalking someone throughout this restaurant is when the movie is at its best. It gets into like a lot of weird plot stuff that I thought didn't really work very well, or at all, really. But the actual creature design of the animatronics was fantastic.
Yeah, and the lore of this video game franchise, I believe the video game started differently, and then the creator created a book and a backstory to kind of create more to it than just like a simple video game. So I heard the lore is pretty darn close. They changed a couple things, but there is some really good stuff in it. But it takes us so long to get inside this iconic pizza joint. I felt like you're not even Five Nights at Freddy's because they're going in and out. I'm not sure how it works in a video game, but no one's stuck in this place. I really thought that you're stuck and you can't get out and they're trapped. But due to the storyline and everything else, it was like easy come, easy go, just go in and out. And I didn't know that they could travel outside also of the pizza joint. I'm not sure, that's a mild spoiler, whatever it is. It's not really, but I didn't know how these characters work outside the pizza joint as well. And it took us too long to get immersed inside of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And like I said, we didn't stay in there that long, a lot back and forth.
I just feel like tonally, it's really all over the place. Like, they have to set up the storyline for why the lead, who's played by Josh Hutcherson from Hunger Games fame, it does a lot to set up why he needs this job so bad. And there's this whole side plot line with his younger sister, who he has custody of, but there's people potentially trying to take her away from him. And then you get into the actual cat and mouse-esque plot of the actual restaurant. But then there's like the plot of something that happened to one of Josh Hutcherson's family members in the past that he's trying to get to. And there's just like so many moving pieces in this movie that should be just like a pretty simple horror concept that just kind of had my head spinning by the end. I just wanted the movie to be what the game was, or what I guess I should say what I thought the game was, because I haven't played all of that. I've dabbled with it. To your point, I feel like for the fans of this movie or of this franchise, I've seen now social media and TikToks of people that are analyzing the movie hardcore, and this could be a tie to a potential sequel, and this and this and this. And judging by the box office, we're gonna get sequels to this, no doubt. They're gonna franchise this as much as they can, especially with the Blumhouse strategy of low budget, high return. This is falling right into that, with flying colors. And for me, it just, sure, I hope that all the people that love this franchise are loving all this lore, but as a movie, I feel like it barely holds together. Like, this thing strapped together with duct tape. It's pretty rough, I thought.
Yeah, the storyline's kind of odd. There's a lot of questions I had about his family, what happened to his parents. Like, everything's vague. I mean, you can figure it out and piece together things, but like, I understand it's really around the abduction of his brother at a young age. and where he's at now. But like, what's the connection with his sister and the character ghost of the Fazbear characters and animatronics? It's just, there's still a lot of questions I have left unanswered from this film. And that's really my biggest problem, because we spend a lot of time outside and it's like all this other stuff going on. And I love Josh Hutcherson. He's great in this. I think he was entertaining. And then we have good old Shaggy, losing his name right now. Can you help me out, Drew?
Yeah, Matthew Lillard.
Thank you. Matthew Lillard, yes, is in here. And he does a really good job. I wish he had a more prominent role or more on-screen time. He has a prominent role, but more on-screen time is what I would like. But this addition to, I think her name is Elizabeth Lale, her character is very odd and it serves a purpose. I will tell you that. But I didn't like her performance. It wasn't believable to me. And I could kind of pick apart just, you could tell something was weird about her anyways. And it just couldn't sell it to me who she really was, and couldn't hide anything. It was really a bland performance, and you could see right through her.
I'm with you. This is one of the characters that really didn't work for me. She's a police officer who shows up, but it doesn't make sense. Like, she spends half the night at the restaurant with him, but yet she's a police officer. Like, shouldn't you be out doing your job? How are you even getting away with this? Yeah, her character is very essential to the plot, but also barely makes sense in other ways. One thing about her, though, there were parts of the movie where I thought she looked strikingly like Jennifer Lawrence in a weird way, like kind of bared resemblance, which I thought was kind of funny because Josh Hutcherson, who's probably most well known for the Hunger Games franchise, which it stars Jennifer Lawrence. I just thought it was really funny. I almost like it was purposefully done that they cast this woman who almost looked like a doppelganger in certain scenes. Like, it's not uncanny or anything like that, but like, I just thought she bore a resemblance that stood out while I was watching. There's also the aunt character who's a big part, and I'm not going to spoil anything here, but the way they do not address her storyline and how it's resolved at all. Like, it's a big cliffhanger that's just left undone in this movie. Like, they when I say this thing's strapped together with duct tape, I mean it. There are plots that are kind of completely unresolved or not acknowledged by the time credits are rolling in this movie.
Yeah, the plot line outside the actual Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is very odd. Like you said, it's just put together. It doesn't make sense. A lot of plot holes, just a lot of gaps. It's like they knew what they were doing inside the pizza joint, but outside of that, they had to make it work, which is weird. Like I said, I haven't played the game. I don't know the lore. Sometimes you can copy and paste exactly what the creator made and just use that instead of, I don't know if they created a unique and new storyline about all this, but if it's brand new, it didn't work. And this is where we get to my issues with Blumhouse. They are having ups and downs, maybe a lot of wins, but to me lately, their reputation to me is a lot of hits and misses, big swings, not doing well. Like, disappointed with Exorcist Believer. I thought Megan was overrated, and then how they finished off Halloween Ends didn't do it for me. And I have to say about Megan, like that movie was boring. There was nothing scary about Megan. I know it was PG-13, and I think they made a rated R cut, which I think I watched the R version or the uncut. Nothing extra in it. Exorcist Believer, rated R, not scary at all. And like I said, Megan was just silly. Like, that was just a silly movie. Nothing scary about it. It was just making a joke of like the doll AI genre without really serving a purpose or introducing anything new. But I do applaud them for this film, though. Like I said, the kids in my theater loved it, and there was a lot of commentary and stuff like that. And I'm happy that they made a movie for the fans and for the young ones. Like, that is fine, and it's PG-13, and it's not too scary for them as Halloween comes now, and they're not going to have nightmares apparently from this. So like, that's fine. You don't want to scare, these kids to death, which I'm fine with. It just didn't resonate as me as a grown man, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like we've kind of brought up the Blumhouse thing before on this show, and I'm kind of more on the defender of Blumhouse, but also after this one, I kind of feel like I can't help but start to agree with you. Their formula obviously works, and there's nothing wrong with that because all of these, well, The Exorcist Believer is a different story because of what they had to do for the rights to that one, but that's a story for another time. But ones like Five Nights at Freddy's and Megan and even the Halloween movies are like made for pretty reasonable budgets, and then the return they usually get is very high. So the formula is not broken, but I would agree that the quality, at least their 2023 releases, have left something to be desired. I liked Megan. I thought Megan was kind of fun, but it's not like a 5-star movie. It's like a 3 out of 5. It's like you said, it's fine. It's serviceable. It's kind of fun. I've seen the last few Blumhouse entries of this year. You know, we talked about Totally Killer on this show and The Exorcist Believer.
Which I wonder, like Totally Killer, like how much they had in it. Some of the movies, like they don't have much hands in it, and they just are contributing to distribution, producing money. Like I don't know exactly, but they don't have their hands all in. And I'm not sure if Totally Killer it was one of those where it's all in because it's also a Prime Video, Amazon Studios film, and they had a great writer and director for that film. So that definitely is why Totally Killer worked. I feel like the director for this film kind of showed her inability to do this film with a lot of issues I had with it. And I just think also with same thing with Exorcist Believer, wrong director for this. And people were slamming the director because he's the same one that did, I believe, the final 2 Halloween movies. I'm not sure if he did all 3 of them, but he's also the co-writer with Danny McBride. And I think they need to get some really maybe fresh talent or some bigger talent. I would like to see Blumhouse get a really big name for starring in their films as well as directing or writing and elevate the studio. Cause it's almost like they're not an indie studio, but they're not like big time all-star studio. They're like almost like an average right now. And they really could elevate themselves kind of with who they're working, more people are working with as in directors and writers, and obviously getting some big names actor wise. But that's just where I'm at with Blumhouse. It's like I said, it's hit or miss with some of their stuff lately, and I'm not sure what the future holds with them.
I just think that if the plot of the movie and the themes and the tone and everything all work, even if it's not a well-known star, but it all comes together, I think that it can be serviceable. But like Josh Hutcherson is definitely not the problem with this movie. Like he's actually fine in it. It's just a lot of the plot and everything doesn't.
Right. But everyone else, the supporting cast is also not that great, honestly, to me.
Yeah.
There was a lot of obviously no names, not saying they're bad actors, but they didn't really offer much. And I can think of maybe there's 3 or 4 supporting characters in there. I'm like, they're not really selling this to me very well.
And there's a lot of things that I can really nitpick in this movie. A big part of it is the actual plot that involves how these animatronics have come to life. And I don't want to get too much. People that have played the games are probably kind of familiar with the how and whys of that. And I don't want to spoil it for the sake of the show, but I also didn't really understand. They don't make it clear how it happened. Like
there's some magic involved, as I can say. It seems like it's like the way it happens, and they don't really dive into too much. But to me, and this is not a spoiler, there's some magic elements or something you just don't even think about. This is the reason why that they're alive. It's a very odd way, and they rarely touch. They like barely touch on it.
Yeah, so that's just one of the things that kind of left me wondering, and we can talk about that a little bit more when we talk about the other film that we're
that's right. So yeah, so real quick, I did give this film 3 out of 5 stars. It was entertaining, and when you're in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, it was really fun, and I loved how the characters looked. And like I said, being in an audience with all these kids, they loved it. I wasn't hating on the film. I was somewhat enjoying, but I got bored when we weren't in the pizza joint. So I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It's an entertaining watch right now. If you have Peacock and it's Halloween right now, it's an interesting watch. It's a crazy Chuck E. Cheese experience. I just wish there was just more focus inside the pizza joint.
I'm going lower than you. I'm going to give this a 2 out of 5, and I feel like that's me being nice.
Oof.
So yeah, I know.
Did you walk out of your home own home watching it? Then I always say like a two for me is walking out of theater. Did you walk out of your home and like I can't watch this?
I did not, but I definitely was. Worth noting, this movie is like almost an hour and 50 minutes long,
It's a little
which
too
is
long.
like for sure 20 minutes longer than it should have been, at least. So I just at times it was dragging, and I may or may not have picked up my phone and been distracted. So I'm fully willing to admit that. But yeah, I thought it was a pretty rough watch, especially when the animatronics weren't on the screen, because like you said, and like we mentioned earlier, I think they're the highlight of the movie because they really do look good. And that's the, I guess, the bread and butter. So thank goodness. If you didn't nail that, then we'd have a really big problem.
Right.
Like,
And I
even
wonder how
looking
much
at my backdrop, if I look at myself on screen, I'm like, they're creepy looking.
they are creepy. And I wonder how much screen time they really had. I might have to go research that actually how much they're on screen, because if it's I don't think it's that much, but I'd be surprised to know how long they're actually on screen. And yeah, we wanted to mention this other movie that came out in 2021 starring Nicolas Cage, that it must be a ripoff of this for sure. Like, obviously, because I didn't think anyone was making this movie. It's a total ripoff of Five Nights at Freddy's. Willy's Wonderland, starring Nicolas Cage, where Cage is like a drifter in a remote town that his car has broken down. First of all, he's like a mute, first of all, pretty much. He doesn't talk at all in this film. And he has to pick up a security job to pay off this bill for this car, where she doesn't really argue the price of the bill, which is weird. It's just like, how much to fix my car? Okay. And so they give him a job. He goes into this similar place, like a pizza joint, like a Chuck E. Cheese-esque, and has to fight off animatronic characters. But it's rated R. So like that's kind of like the selling point of it, that it's a rated R version. So it is a little bit more violent. It shows a lot more, but the characters are so like janky. Like they are like Sesame Street. Like it's like Sesame Street acid crackhead animatronics.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and the main animatronic in it, that Willy, is a weasel, and I think that goes, that says everything, because like well, I guess it makes it. We did go to a restaurant growing up where the main character was a mouse. So yeah, I guess a weasel's like close to the rodent family.
But we have to mention this. Yes, there was Chuck E. Cheese, but do you remember a time where Showbiz Pizza existed and it was a gorilla?
Yes, I remember, but I don't have the same ties there. I grew up going to birthday parties at Chuck E. Cheese for sure, with the animatronics on the stage, that I remember finding intriguing as a kid, but also kind of scary. So that I think that's why the Five Nights at Freddy's, just idea has resonated with people, especially like us who grew up going into these party places. And I think that's where Willy's Wonderland had to have come from. It had to be somebody saying, hey, how have they not made a Five Nights at Freddy's movie yet? We can make one for probably pretty fast and pretty cheap. The budget listed on Wikipedia is $5 million. Probably most of that went to Cage. Like, let's be honest, if you have Nicolas Cage in your movie, the slow budget movie, he probably got a big chunk of that, because it for sure didn't go into the sets or the costumes with the animatronics here, because they look much cheaper, but at least the kills are gory and bloody, and like it's more of a comedy. Five Nights at Freddy's has bits of it trying to be more of a horror movie. I think Willy's Wonderland just kind of knows that it's a schlocky horror comedy, and it plays into that with Cage's character and how he doesn't talk and he's not scared of these things at all, and he's just having a good time. So yeah, it's just they're different, and it's like the things that I think Willy's Wonderland did well, which isn't very much, but there's some. Those are the things that Five Nights at Freddy's, I feel like, didn't do as well, because at least this movie sticks to the restaurant, focuses on a night in the restaurant where all craziness breaks out, as opposed to all these other plots and things going on. And but where Five Nights at Freddy's excels, the actual character design and things like that are great, but then the plot had a lot to be left desired. So it's just neither of these movies really work in the long run for a concept that's so promising. It's like, when's somebody gonna get it right? That being said, we're gonna get a slew of Five Nights at Freddy's movies to come, so maybe they'll get better.
Yeah, maybe. And to be honest, like, they could have done so much better for Five Nights at Freddy's. They could have done it like did we really spend 5 nights during the film? Like, couldn't they do like night one, dun dun dun, and then like do some crazy stuff in night two? Like, they could have built up some suspense also as well. And I'm not sure what type of licensing issues they had, or maybe if that's the song in the game, but that one song they keep playing over and over, I was like, this is laughable. The one song they sing for the karaoke thing, or whatever you want to call it, their performance, I was like, that's the one song. Is that in the video game? Because if it's not in the video game, it's a really bad choice, I feel like, for that film. But it would have been nice to have like a breakdown of the film, night one, night two, and then kind of tell the story that way. And dive into that and really be stuck in there somehow. Try to find a way out. I thought you're trapped in there and you have to find a way out. I didn't know you can easily walk in and walk out.
We're gonna have the Five Nights at Freddy's hive after us, Sean. They're gonna be coming for us, the Freddy heads.
That's fine.
It's gonna be a rough go.
Educate us though. Like, I really loved someone like I might go get the game and play to see how it is. I kind of did some research and stuff. It looks fun. It looks cool. It's something I would have played back in the day when I was an avid gamer, especially at a younger age. And the lore seems cool. Like I said, this wasn't made for us. We're not the fan of the franchise, but that's fine. Y'all enjoy it. Kids, this movie is for you. So lucky y'all to have this type of movie made for y'all and for the fans of the franchise. But yeah, those are 2 movies you might want to check out for adults and kids.
Yeah, and if you don't want to go see it in theaters, if you have a Peacock subscription, you can catch it at home. It was there. I remember we were actually messaging on Thursday evening, and I didn't think that it was going to be. You could go catch Thursday night screenings of the movie in theaters. I didn't think it was going to be on Peacock though until Friday proper. And you let me know that it was actually out on Thursday evening, so I was able to watch it the night that I would have gone to see it in theaters. So
I think they dropped it early.
Nice.
I think they dropped it early because of how bad the reviews were. Like, they were really bad, and they were saying, "Well, why even wait? If the reviews are that bad, release it and let the audience score go up." Which the audience score is very high, and Jason Blum brags about it, which he should. And that's what I'm saying. The audience loved it. And I'm happy to hear that for sure. And I wish I was part of that audience. I wish I grew up a Five Nights at Freddy's fan, so I could really appreciate what it was. But as just a moviegoer, I just found it boring until we got there. And that's the bottom line.
I agree. There's a lot of boring parts in this movie, which is a big problem.
Yeah. So that is episode 16. And that means we need to figure out what we're talking about for 17 next week. And it's going to kick off November. When does this Holdovers movie hit theaters? Because I'm dying for you to go see that, because I know that was on your list. And I have seen it. My review is up on nerdtropolis.com. But the Holdovers is something we're definitely be talking about soon. I know the Marvels are coming out. You got the Hunger Games.
I'm looking at my trusty IMDb release calendar, and it looks like the big release next weekend is Priscilla, which you and I have both already seen and talked about as far as
Drew, it's not a big
goes.
release. I'm gonna say, I'm sorry. I know you enjoyed the film. It's not a big release. Let's
well, I mean, I say big release. I mean, I even agree with you, right? It's like it's an A24 film. It's a smaller movie. But that being said, there's nothing else coming out that weekend, so it might be a good weekend maybe for us to try and catch up and do a review of Dumb Money if we're able to catch that somewhere. I know it's on VOD. There's some streaming movies that I still want to catch up on, but yeah, otherwise it looks like the Holdovers doesn't come out till the 10th wide release, which is when the Marvels also comes out.
So I guess we're gonna have, or whenever we do the Marvels, we'll have a double header most likely with the Marvels and the Holdovers. I do want to have I know what we're going to do. Maybe I don't know if it's too much. Maybe we have to do this in one episode. Good Burger 2 comes out on Paramount Plus this month, I believe, on November 22nd. So we definitely got to talk about.
We'll for sure watch that. That is for the Nerdtropolis audience.
That is cinema right there. That is cinema. So we definitely got to watch the 1 and 2. Good Burger. Home of the Good Burger. Let's take your order now.
I've seen the first one many times when I was younger, but I probably haven't seen it in 25 years or longer. Yeah, I'll absolutely rewatch the first one and watch the new one.
I'm a big Kenan and Kel fan. I love them on all that. I loved them when they did Kenan and Kel the show with his orange soda love. And then the Good Burger, the skit is awesome. Like, I just love saying, welcome to Good Burger, home to the Good Burger. Can I take your order? I just like the emphasis on order. It's just awesome. And then what's the song? He's like, he's a dude, she's a dude. I just love that's such great characters. And I'm glad they're reuniting after all these years. You can see how excited I am just talking about Good Burger. A lot of nostalgia there for me, and especially for Drew, and just good slapstick, childish like humor for all ages. And so excited to see who shows up on Good Burger 2. They said there's a lot of fun cameos, a lot of people from the first film too, which has actually a lot of fun actors and cameos, and the people that pop up in there. So we have a lot to talk about then, it seems like. And we had let you know
it's just a matter of this next weekend, and then there'll be no lack of content at all.
No, we got lots to talk about. And if you haven't yet, make sure to check out previous episodes of the Moviegoers Society podcast. You can check out my podcast, Nerdtropolis Mayor Presents, where I interview directors and actors and writers and producers, everybody you could think of on the Nerdtropolis podcast network. And once again, Drew, where can they find you?
You can find me at Drew Munhausen on all the different social media platforms and weekly at Fresh Out the Podcast.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of the Moviegoers Society. Once again, I'm Sean Tajipour, the mayor of Nerdtropolis, and we will see you at the movies.